What happens when the servants we hire to protect our rights turn their backs and run? Well, we'll ponder that next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study, where we read and study the Constitution and we teach the rising generation to be free. I'm so glad you could join me today. As always, please head over to that website, constitutionstudy.com, where you find everything I'm working on. You can sign up for the newsletter. You can shop the store. I'm trying to find more products to put in there. You can contact me. You can ask me questions. You can ask if I'll attend one of your events. All of it happens right there in the Constitution Study. I hope you'll take a little bit of time and peruse that while you're listening or maybe after you watch this video. But with that, let's talk about cowardly servants. We've all seen the news. Cities with rioting and looting while the police just stand aside and watch. Property and businesses destroyed, often under the watchful eyes of those who claim they are there to protect and to serve. And we should never forget those mayors who fiddle while parts of their cities burn. You know, those who abdicated their responsibility to protect the rights of the citizens they are supposed to serve. The ones who have failed in their duty to do the primary thing we created governments for. As the Declaration of Independence says, quote, "To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." We create governments to protect our rights. Yet in the middle of all this, fingers are pointing like it's the new American pastime. And yet all the accusations, excuses, and general blame shifting, well, one very important point seems to have been missed. You see, the mayors of these cities were all elected by the citizens of the city. In other words, these are the people you hire to represent you. And based on what I've seen of their campaigns for those elections, you're getting exactly what you asked for. Oh, not individually. There are plenty of people in these cities who did not vote for the current occupant of the office of mayor. Then again, most of those same people did very little, if anything, to elect someone better. These mayors ran on Marxist, collectivist, sometimes even communist platforms, and apparently that is what a majority of those who cared wanted. Or maybe you just wanted the freebies, you know, the promises of a utopian future, but were never willing to determine the cost. Well, here's a down payment. You want to know what that utopian future will cost? It will cost you your liberty. And the cost of those freebies? Anarchy, looting, physical violence in your streets. Now, I'm not saying everyone who espouses this rhetoric is out to loot, plunder, and steal, but enough of them are to make your life miserable. And I'm not saying we should not try to find ways to make the lives of others better. But as the saying goes, caveat emptor, buyer beware. And for those of you blaming the police chiefs, remember, that person was appointed by the mayor that the city elected. So if you want the laws of your city better executed, you have to choose a better chief executive. See, there's an old saying that well describes the situation in these cities today. The chickens are coming home to roost. Now, if you don't like the mess these chickens are making, well, choose better people to act as your public servants. And don't just turn them loose in your yard, but keep an eye on what they are doing. You see, if the citizens of these cities had done that from the beginning, they would not be burning on the news today. Which leads me to the old good news, bad news point I want to make. Yes, we have made this mess, and at best we've let it happen. And not just the people in the cities that are burning, but each and every American. We have let our governments at all levels run amok. We have abdicated our responsibility to oversee those we hire to represent us. Even worse, we have abdicated our responsibility to make sure our children are taught how to be citizens in a republic. We have let government-selected experts tell us our children don't need to know about the constitutions of the country and our state, that they don't need to know civics, that government is the boss and whatever they say goes, and that we are here to serve them. Now, many of us were not taught about civics either, but that doesn't absolve us of the responsibility of learning for ourselves and then to teach others. Now, the good news is, since we've allowed this mess to happen, we can fix it. We can choose better servants of the public interest. Men and women who will serve and fulfill their oath to support the constitutions of their state and of the United States. Who will take their job of securing our rights seriously and make it their top priority. But only when we stop electing them based on empty promises, party affiliation, or just wishful thinking. Only when the American people start treating their elected officials as employees rather than masters will we find a better class of official. As James A. Garfield said at the Country Centennial, quote, "Now more than ever, the people are responsible for the character of their Congress. If that body be ignorant, reckless, and corrupt, it is because the people tolerate ignorance, recklessness, and corruption. If it be intelligent, brave, and pure, it is because the people demand these high qualities to represent them in the national legislature. If the next centennial does not find us a great nation, it will be because those who represent the enterprise, the culture, and the morality of the nation do not aid in controlling the political forces." If we are responsible for the character of our Congress, then we are responsible for the character of all of our elected offices. However, since we have decades of abuse and neglect on our hands, the bad news is this will not be fixed overnight. Not in the next election, maybe not even in the next decade. You cannot shovel decades worth of trash overnight, but you can start. And that is a very important point. See, only when we start will things start to get better. It will take years and decades to reverse all of the neglect of the American people. But as we clean up our own little backyards, things will get better. That's why I say we focus on the state of our local governments and local affairs. Not only will you see immediate benefits from cleaning up your own city, town, or county government, but they can help protect you from the corruption in our state and federal governments. As Benjamin Franklin warned us, quote, "Those who would give up essential liberty for temporary security deserve neither liberty or security." Many in these cities and millions around the nation have given up their liberties with the promise that government and the police will keep them safe. This last month, and in fact these last several months, have proven that is a lie. My question is, have the American people learned their lesson? Are they willing to start making their liberty and their safety their own responsibility? Or will these chickens roost in more and more cities until the very idea of liberty and justice for all becomes a thing of the past? So what do you think? I mean, I've talked about the riots before, but this time I'm focusing on the officials in the cities that are letting these riots go on. I'm not picking on any one particular city. I'm picking on them all. And I want the American people, especially the people in those cities, to realize this is what comes from the officials that you elected, either directly or by allowing them, but not finding someone better. So maybe you didn't vote for that person. What did you do to find someone better and get them elected? What have you done to hold your representatives accountable? Not just the mayor, but your representative on the city council. Or if you're like me, you live in a rural area, on the county board. Have you just sat back and said, let them do it? Or are you engaged? Are you educating them on their responsibilities and their duties as public servants? If not, well, you're part of the problem. I'm sorry to not say there's some quick, easy fix to all of this. But unless we get started, it'll never happen. We'll continue to slide into this mess. What's been happening in Minneapolis and Washington, D.C. and New York City and all these other cities will happen in more and more cities. And eventually, they'll come to cities and towns and counties near you. When you see the train coming, you figure out it's time to get off the track. If we're not going to make a change, we can't be surprised when we get hit by this train. If you've already been hit by this train, well, I'm sorry, it is in many cases the consequences of your actions or the actions of your neighbors. But to those of us who are standing by watching what's happening to you and still standing on that track waiting for the train to hit us, why? Why would you stand there and wait for the train to hit you? And why would you go asking somebody 1,000 miles away or 3,000 miles away to do what is your job? And that is to hire better representatives and to hold them accountable. And if they won't do their job, fire them. You can do that. Take responsibility for your actions, take responsibility for your elections, get involved, get engaged, focus local. Spend less time worrying what's going on in Washington and more time worrying what's going on in your city hall or your county courthouse. And if we start doing that, A, we'll live in a better county or in a better city, but those changes will then propagate. And maybe instead of a train coming for us, will be a nice little ride as we return to a state of liberty and justice for all. And if that's what you'd like to see, hopefully I'll see you here next time on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from